So again, come on in. We're in here. We moved. We're staying in here. So again, so we're gonna go with line. Type in line spacebar, and it's asking for a start point or the first point. 0, comma 0. The enter, and then you'll see that it's actually picking the point now. It's at 0, 0.
Yeah.
So again, my increments are gonna be at 20 for my length, and then I'll just call it a height. We'll do it at 10. So now I'm going to be moving perpendicular. Remember that I have ortho on?
It did it on the 0, comma 0?
Yes. And remember that we have ortho on, so if you notice that it's going at an angle, get it F8 or down the bottom. So I'm going to go perpendicular to that. I'm going to go in the positive Y direction, and I'm going to go 10. Then I'm going to go in the negative, well, relatively to the last point, the negative X direction. So I'm going to go 20 one more time. And then again, you could hit C for close, or I could simply type 10 again because the segment on the other side. So I'm just going to hit C, and it's going to close that line for me. So everyone have something similar to this? No.
It didn't close. I missed a spot.
We do it again?
One more time.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Practice makes perfect. Okay, so L enter. 0, comma 0 for my start point. Then my length of the first line is 20. Then enter. And then you want to go perpendicular to that, 90 degrees. So as long as you have ortho on, it does it automatically. Then you'll hit 10.
It could still hit it on the angle. Yeah,
So you don't have the ortho on then. So
do the line and then put the ortho.
well, you could do it before or after. It doesn't matter. So go ahead and escape out of the whole command, starting from scratch, and hit F8. And then you should see it'll actually say in your command line ortho. Okay, so now type line 0, comma 0, and then pull out to the right side or the positive X direction, and then 20. Then now when you pull up in the positive Y, is it straight?
Yes.
Okay, so then we're gonna go 10. And then I'm going to go back to the Y-axis, so
There we go.
20 again. And then again, you could scroll down to the origin point, or you could simply hit C for close. And you can see up in the top, it actually says close. So you could actually pick on the word close, and it'll do the same thing. Yeah.
It's fine. I put 20 and it made it almost to the top.
That's because you're not zoomed out. So take your pan wheel and zoom out,
Okay.
and you'll be able to see the full line now. Because, I mean, everything's relative. I mean, now mine's nice and big, too.
What was the 90 degree,
So this is it.
the quarter of a
It's the
circumference? What was that about? I've got that.
So when you hit F8, it constrains your lines from being 90 degrees either compared to the X and Y axis to the origin point. So if you don't have it, you're gonna get an angled line, just random depending on where you pick. So F8 is gonna constrain it so that you could only go completely X or completely Y, basically. Did it work?
So what we're looking at the screen is what we're supposed to have on our screen.
Yes.
All right. If mine don't look nothing like that.
Okay.
Part of the problem I think I have is draw a line, and she came with this, specify next point, we close to do. 0, comma 0. I wrote ortho.
can type in 20, and it'll give you a line that's 20. Enter. Or spacebar. Enter and spacebar do the same thing in AutoCAD. So now you want to pull your mouse up. See, so now you want to 10. Right?
I think it's easy, it's just
And then back
steps
towards
and we do
the
it.
y-axis.
Skip a step and that's it.
Yeah, there you go. See how it snapped back? Because you have ortho on. So what ortho does is it keeps you constrained
That's
to
it,
90
right?
degrees.
Just, right?
Compared to this. You could always, you could mess with this,
A box?
and it'll be 90 degrees to that.
If I'm going to the
Then,
So you want to go 20 again.
then there's
So
no
remember,
door.
AutoCAD, you always want to be as precise as possible.
We're old
Jump the
school.
window.
Yeah.
Okay, so now
We
you
don't
have two
use
different
doors.
options. You could either hit close, which is what I did, or you could take your line, your cursor back down towards the axis and type in 10 again. Or you could simply click on the endpoint.
The endpoint,
So the endpoint is, see how it pops up as a little green, so
0, 0.
exactly. So there's this button here is called object snap.
So I would hit that.
No, it's already on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
See how it's highlighted blue?
Oh, okay, so that's good.
It's white at the top.
Okay, I got that.
Yeah.
So what I do now, I would, instead of going down, I just hit, not
I don't know if it
tonic,
says, but
It says 10.
go down.
it's grabbing the, this, grabbing this
Line.
one. So we have to
Well,
move it,
that's-
right?
You could, so
I'm up
if
here.
you pick your mouse right now, you
Now
look,
you put 20 down.
And it's gonna take
bang,
it over.
Yeah.
sorry, right.
And
And
then,
then to go down here.
yeah, so you have to, that's the trick that we're missing.
See, so now you see how your line, you pick your line there. So this is actually, you can click
So that's
around,
what
see
I
what
was
it's
saying.
saying.
He's so smart.
Exactly.
So,
You gotta drag the mouse or move.
so, yeah, so you can simply hit use
They know.
spacebar. And then now,
Yeah, try that, yeah, so
wait, one more time.
Maybe continue.
So the other way to do it is here. This is undo. Undo is like back step, back step, back step, back, one step at a time. So if you zoom in and out, it's gonna do that step. So,
This is what we got.
so you can simply hit C or close, and it'll actually
Doing
hit
pretty
C
good.
spacebar, and then it actually finishes up.
That's what I'm doing.
So what C's gonna do is, you draw a line way out here, you hit C, it's gonna draw a line back to the start. Because you're in a chain of,
We did it back.
if you escape, then, and then you start a new line, it's gonna go back to the new line that you started.
Is, I guess while you're right here, is there like a nomenclature for every line? Is there like a, step by step that has everything that you see what's the top,
There's a book, but
Where do you get it from that?
You should see it. There's a-
on YouTube, I always say just
drag it up.
and it's free.
get to it.
Yeah, so,
Some good stuff like that.
yeah, but, I'm going over kind of a little faster than last time.
Error,
That
error,
one.
error,
So
error.
basically I'm trying to go over the same stuff that we did on Monday anyway, so, yeah.
Thank you.
I wonder if you go in there and put the-
Practice makes perfect.
Right.
Okay, so that was a series of lines, right? It's not a polyline. So if I click on the bottom line, it only grabs the bottom line. If I click on the right side, it only grabs that one.
That's,
So-
we have to put enter once we get that.
Well, if you hit close, it ends the command.
Oh, if I please. Oh,
If you hit close, or if you hit 10 and it went back down, then yes, you have to enter to end the command.
so then just do enter.
So enter is gonna start and end a command.
Right. And then now you can highlight it.
Yeah. So now you could
Keyword, enter.
or space, enter, space,
Space or enter.
space are gonna do the same thing. Even the one over on the side, the far right, it does the same thing. It doesn't do anything different.
If not, I end up entering into space. and then
Okay. So now I just want to do a polyline again. So it's the second button, or the shortcut is PL. Or you could type polyline. So, but this time my starting point, I want to do it at 30 because I want it to be to the right side of the other rectangle. So I'm going to hit 0. No, sorry, 30 comma 0.
30 comments here.
Yeah. So your start point should now be to the right side of that rectangle that we drew first.
You did a perpendicular line. Okay, got you.
Okay, so we're gonna do the same box dimensions, so it's 20 by 10. So 20 to the right, 10 up because we still have ortho on, 20 to the left, and then for this one I'll just hit 10 to go down. So now you can see that I'm still in the command. So if you do enter the number for the last segment, you do have to hit spacebar to end the command. So everybody have a second rectangle.
Working on it.
Do you want me to do it again?
Sure.
Okay. So we're gonna delete that one. So I'm gonna do polyline. Then it's 30, comma 0. Then the dimension is the same, so it's 20. Then I'm gonna move my mouse up so that it'll go perpendicular to that line, and I'll go 10. Then move my mouse to the left, and because I still have ortho on, it's keeping its constraints to perpendicular to each other. 20 one more time, and then 10, and then spacebar to end the command. Don't be mad at her, be mad at me.
She's making me mad. No, she's getting that.
One more time?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait. Let me undo this because I got all the lines on it. Okay.
Just hit escape, and you could always delete the line that you drew.
Okay, hit polyline.
Polyline,
30.
30, comma 0.
Enter.
So now you can see, here's look like mine where it has a little wiggly line. I'm stretching it out. Are you zoomed in too far? You might be zoomed in too far. So yeah, here. So if you no, go ahead. You can do it. I'm just gonna show you. So if you push down on the center button, and then no, the other way. Hold it. No, hold it down. Sorry. Push and hold. There you go. Now move it up.
Okay.
Now you can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So remember that the middle wheel. If you push down the middle wheel, it is the pan feature.
Hey, Professor.
Yeah.
I had it, but I lost it. I'm at this point right here now.
Okay. Yeah. So your line's starting at 0, 0. So we're gonna highlight that one. Highlight it. Yep. And hit delete or E. Doesn't matter. Does both. Same thing. Okay. So we're gonna hit polyline. This here. Yep.
Okay.
Well, you can no. It works the same. It does work the same. Okay. So our start point's different now. So it's 30.
So, and isn't that a little short right now? Yes. So now, 30,
Comma 0.
comma 0.
Enter.
Why is it just comma 0 on this?
Because so it's Cartesian coordinates. So basically it's taking it so in Cartesian coordinates x is first, y is second. So basically not point to it.
So,
So you just comma twice.
yeah.
So it's just 30 and then comma jumps you to the next y.
Oh,
So you can
make
see
everything
here
go away.
30 and it's locked because that's the first point. Then you get 0.
Now, did you do the line at 30 or 20?
So it's 30 in the x,
30 X.
0 in the y.
20, right?
That's what we're doing. All I'm doing is and right now it's just because we don't have dimensions yet or anything. We're just trying to.
So now here I am with this, so I'm gonna go over.
No, hit undo.
Oh, he just moved
Type
it.
in
It
U.
doesn't mean that. Yeah, good. I got you.
Okay,
That's
so
because I didn't do it right.
so we want a length of 20. So you type in 20. And then enter or spacebar, same thing. Okay, so now we'll go up 10.
You want to
Yeah. So I would type 10 again. Doesn't you could be way up here. You could be way up here and type in 10 and it'll go to 10. Yeah. Then you want to go back, move your mouse to the left to where your line. You see, so you can see right here. See how it's. Go back. Push your mouse, please. So you see how it already told you that you drew a line for 10 because now it's showing you this is the new length of your new line. So once you see it move from that point, now you can see. Now if you're going this, yeah, you can put it right there and you can type in 20 and it'll go 20. Yep. Yeah. You don't have to be at 10 for it to go to 10.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense.
So you can click right there and then now hit enter and you'll end the command.
Hey, can I
Spacebar and do the same thing.
Okay.
There you go. So So you can see now you're not in any commands because you actually see the crosshair. That's how you see nothing's attached to it around it.
When you hit the command tab, you don't have to put it in the
No,
mouse.
no.
It's automatic.
Yeah, it does the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It already creates the. It's doing the same exact thing. Yeah. It's pre-programmed in here, so when you hit that button,
You're good to go.
and you can change it. You hit that button, it'll do text if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could change it.
Yeah. To a different name.
Yeah, exactly.
I got you.
Okay, so 20, 10, 20, and close. So now, with the polyline, you can see if I click on any segment of it, it actually selects the whole thing. Versus the one on the left, if I click a segment, it only clicks on that segment. So everyone should be doing the same thing. So let's say for some reason that you decided, oh, I don't want that to be a polyline. So now we're going to get into modify commands. So the first thing you could do is you would highlight the box. So by either picking from right to left, you'll see that it turns green. So you see how my crosshairs has the little green dotted box. So if I click that, it'll actually select it. And then now now that I have that selected, if I type the letter X, enter, it's actually an explode command. So what now it does is it takes that polyline and it turns it into individual segments.
So you select it, and then you just go to
Explode, or I think it's in here and modify. Yeah, here it is right here. Yep. So what it's doing is it's taking that shape that you drew and making individual segments so that you could actually modify the individual segments by themselves instead of as a whole. So one reason may be because you want the left line to be green and the right line to be red. If it's a polyline, you're unable to do that.
You can also type it in explode.
Explode. Type in explode.
Getting it.
3 ways to do everything.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, so now we're gonna go the other way now. So no, well, not undo. Just leave it as it is. So
Select it.
no, don't select anything yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the one on the left into a polyline. So we will turn the polyline into line segments. Now we're gonna do the other way. So the shortcut command, and I really don't even know what the other command would be. So this is the only one I'm gonna be able to show you right now. Is PE. So it's P edit. It stands for polyline edit. So now if I select one of the lines, doesn't matter which line you pick right now. So if I'm just gonna select the one for the left. And it says, this is not a polyline. Do you want to turn it into a polyline? Yes, I do. So it automatically defaults to yes. So you can see right there on my cursor, it says Y.
I opened it up and it came out to, and I hit on it, it said select polyline.
Yes.
It went to polyline, it just says select polyline again. I'm in a little square now, I lost my crosshairs.
Let me see.
Yeah, I had the submission, then I went to line.
Yeah, I'm at select polyline now.
Yes. So pick on the polyline. Pick on a line. Yep.
Oh, I see, highlight.
Pick it. So now it's saying, yeah. So you can actually pick the line first.
So like that little square, right? So we just click on that.
No, right now you're in P line.
So I pick whatever line.
No. So P edit. So it's PE.
right?
PE. Remember, you don't have to click in here, or you can click down here and it'll do the same thing. You don't actually have to click the command bar.
You open up and modify.
No.
It's already on.
So now it's See, you see it's telling you here. Select all.
Oh.
So select one of the lines. Doesn't matter which one. It's gonna say. See, it's telling. It's asking you for information. Sorry, it's asking you for information.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do PE. You don't have to
Close
type
and
in there.
modify.
Oh.
That's fine. It's fine. If you're more comfortable typing there, I just want to let
I
you
just doing the same thing all over. Now
Yeah,
I
that's
don't get confused.
Okay, so you clicked on it, and now it's polyline because the last time you did turn it into a polyline. So if we hit yes, or you hit spacebar because it defaults to yes, you're gonna see that you can get an extra drop down now.
Yeah.
So what you're gonna want to do is hit join. So now it says select objects. So basically what you're doing is you're taking the segments and you're adding them together to be one object.
So you click them all.
So you can pick them all individually. So I could click, click, click. I have them all three highlighted. I don't need to highlight the original one. And then, so once I'm done selecting the other three, I could hit spacebar. And then I could hit spacebar one more time just to exit the command. So now, if I enter, I guess I do have to pick the original one. I don't know why. Oh, because I didn't start at the top, huh? No, I didn't start at the top.
So we don't pick anything on the drop bar?
No. So if you pick so you hit it, hit yes, hit join. So you could pick each line. Go ahead and pick the original one, I guess. I think I messed up, but because I didn't start with the top one. I started with the top one and his another one. But that's fine.
I didn't start with the original one.
Yeah, no, I know. You don't have. You shouldn't have to. And then if you hit enter and then hit enter again to exit the command, you can see now that it's a polyline just like the other one was. So the reason you may want to do this is, let's say you're drawing a room, and you draw the lines as individual lines, and then you decide that you want to offset them to give them a thickness for like a wall or something. You can always go back, because instead of offsetting each one, and you'll learn when we get to offset, there's a reason that you don't want to offset each one, because then it takes another command to trim them off and make it look correct. So this way, if you just offset them all at once, it saves you a step basically. So I'll just show you there's two different ways to go back and forth between line and polyline. So you could either draw it as a line, make it a polyline. You could draw it as a polyline and make it individual line segments, either way. So I believe that in the newer versions, you could actually type join. So type in the word join, and you could select all of the lines at once, and it should turn it into a polyline at once. Yeah. So that's something that they've added in more recent versions. Yeah.
You know, when I clicked on the left line, it all turned into a polygon.
You clicked on.
You're right, clicked on this.
Oh yeah, I went back to the one that we exploded. That's why.
So it's saying select source object or multiple objects to join at once.
So yeah, so you could hit. So you could either pick each line individually.
Again,
Yeah.
like the one.
Yeah, and then hit enter, and it'll actually join. You can see up here in my command bar, it actually says,
Because we have it in the regular line.
yeah, because we exploded that one.
Yeah.
The last one is on modify on the second one right there.
Which one?
Modify, and then it should be that one. You just click on it. And
Oh, there it is. There you go. Thank you. So that's where the drop down is, or the button for the P edit or edit polyline. I don't know why it's not like EP, but it's PE because it's edit polyline. But oh well, that's what it is. So are there any questions? I know that one was a little rough, so. No? Everyone able to explode a line and join a line now? Yeah? Okay. So one thing that it just kind of brought up to my attention right now when I'm doing this. In AutoCAD there's a window and a crossing. So basically when you do a window versus a crossing, it's actually going to select the objects differently. So when you select something from the right to the left, from the lower right to the upper left, you see how the window actually turns green? So if I want to select an object, I only have to touch part of the object. And it actually, you see how the whole rectangle highlights when I only touch the bottom corner? So if I'm here and I select just barely this little corner, it actually highlights the whole thing. So I'm going to be selecting that whole thing. Versus if I start from the top left and I select this way, when I hit it and it's blue, you see the different colors. So when it's blue, it's not gonna select anything unless I actually highlight and hover over the entire object. So there's different ways to select the objects as well.
When I'm trying to select it, it's not making a box. It's just making.
He's holding it.
You just pick once. So pick in the bottom right,
Yeah.
and then don't hold it down. Just pick, click, let it go.
It's selected right now, so just.
Hit escape.
So just click it.
Yep, and then hover over towards the upper left.
Nope.
No, hit on, hit escape. No, click on the bottom. Yeah, maybe it's not as cool.
Yeah, it's doing that.
So from where I clicked on, everything to the right is green, everything to the left is blue.
Well, it's lower right to the upper left.
Everything to the right is blue, everything to the left is green, right?
So if I click down here from the lower right, you see.
I guess I wasn't doing it. No, no.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm just trying to show is you don't have to go like this and click here. You could actually click from down here to highlight things, or vice versa. No, it's just a regular click.
Oh, it's a regular
Yeah.
one. Okay.
So here, what I'd have to do is highlight the whole thing
Yeah.
to have it access, basically.
So what's the actual significance of everything being, from where I clicked on from the center of a square, everything on the left is green and everything to the right of it from the line is blue? You see, I click right here,
Well, you already have that selected, so if we exit out, now try it.
okay.
So if you select there and go to the left, you see how it's only selecting the parts that you're barely touching this one. It's selecting the whole thing, right? So go this way and see how it's not selecting that one.
Right. 'Cause I'm
You
already
got
inside of
oceans
it.
and
Well,
mountains.
it's because you have to select the end points.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so now it's, okay. Interesting. That's why I put a corner.
So another way to do it, one more. So if I pick anywhere on the screen, doesn't matter. I just pick one place on the screen, and I start, and I have my blue box now, right? So if I type F or I click the word fence, then you see how it changed. So now it's actually aligned. So I could pick a box out of my, and it'll pick the whole thing. So there's a fence, and there'll be reasons to use all three of them at some point. I just want to show you that there's different ways to do it, basically.
And does that actually mean a fence?
Yeah, it's like you're drawing a fence around the object. Yeah. Yep.
Is there a fence icon on the top or no?
No, because this is all in selections, so it's all really just your left click. You know, that's all.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, so you're not actually entering any commands.
So it's just a drop down box from the menu.
Yeah. Yeah. So does everyone understand the difference between the crossing and the window?
So the fence only works when the line goes straight through whatever you need to highlight?
So it depends which way you're doing it. So if you do it this way and you do a fence, I could go through it and it picks it. But if I go this way and I fence, I think I have to select all the way around it. Right?
No,
I don't even think it'll work, huh?
I think it's still whatever the
Yeah,
line touches.
it doesn't even work. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's whatever the line touches that highlights. Since that's already a fire line, it's gonna highlight the whole thing. And if it's separated, it's whatever line it's.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so he's right. The fence, you have to actually go through the object that you want to select.
Just above.
Or you could select all the way around it, going from
Put fence.
bottom right to top left.
What causes it to go, it just follows the cursor? You got a line that's just going, everywhere.
It's
What causes that exactly?
you're in the middle of a command more than likely.
Okay. No, I click and, well, now I've got it. Yeah, I came off of it and I went back to F.
beautiful fence.
Now I've got it again. I've got
If
it.
you hold the mouse button down.
Yeah, it'll create a different. It basic yeah.
It should do it anyway. Yeah,
No, I already did that.
I think you're ready in.
I wanted to put a roof on this.
It should do it anyway.
Leave it like this. So the square, now to draw.
You're just
now to
doing
draw the
tents?
fence. So you see how-
Oh, okay. That's another one.
I'm having trouble getting the fence
Right,
back.
thanks.
I went to the, what's the sequence there on that? I got the box, I'm pushing X or F, right?
No. You're in a command.
Okay.
Okay, so let's escape. So pick. Just click. Doesn't matter. Now if you type that. Now click. So go ahead. Click over here. Click over here. Click over here. Click through the box. Click through the box. Keep going. Click over here. Yep. Click up now.
Working?
Now hit enter. Turn this space. See how it's selecting all the objects.
Yeah. Yeah, you missed the screen. Command is this. Oh, it helps you.
Okay, so one more to even confuse even more.
No.
The lasso. So, because I noticed people just doing this already. When you hold the left click down,
Yeah.
it'll actually do like you could do a freeform shape and it lassos, and basically anything that's within that point is gonna grab. So, if I go this way though, if I go part of it, it's not gonna grab it. I actually have to go around the. Well, it's not gonna do it because now I screwed up. But there you go. So you actually have to do. So it's the same as the window in the crossing. When you bottom right to top left, you only have to hit any part of that object from the top left to the bottom right. You actually have to encompass the whole thing. So you actually have to select over the whole thing. So one more time. So if I'm going from the bottom right to the top left, I simply have to hover over part of it. Top left to bottom right, I have to cover the whole thing. Cool. All right.
What about W polygon and C polygon?
I don't even know what those do. Let's find out. W polygon.
Those create a square.
Oh, okay. It's the same as like a fence, but it's creating the square. There's another way to select. So,
And W is the green one.
window versus crossing. C, okay. There you go. Okay. Yep. Everyone understand the selections? Enough selections? You can always just pick on the object if you want. And you can just keep adding. You don't have to hit control. You can hit shift to let go. You don't have to hold control down like some of the other ones. Some of the other programs, so the next thing that I kind of wanted to do, I mean, it seems pretty easy, but is just move the box. What if you drew it in the wrong spot and you want to move it? So it's here. It's the first one. It actually says move and has like little crosshairs with the arrows on it. Or M should be the shortcut. Or type in move. So again, if I select the box, this one, I'm just gonna move the right one for now. And then you hit spacebar because now I've selected the objects that I actually want to move. Now it's saying specify your base point. So this could be anywhere on your drawing, unless you want to. If you're moving it a set amount, so let's say for instance, I'm gonna move it 10 units. But if I wanted to move it from a specific point on there, then I would actually have to click there. If I'm moving it a specified amount, I can click anywhere on my screen. So I'll show you both ways. So basically, I'm gonna move this one 10 units to the right. So you can see how it's actually following me already. So if I type 10, it's going to move it 10 units to the right. So when you clicked on the base point and you actually started to move your cursor, it's gonna move the way that your cursor is moving. So if you're moving it down, it's gonna move down.
Yeah, I hit it right.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
Yeah. So
Moving right now.
so you want to go move your cursor towards the right,
Yeah.
and then you could hit 10, enter, and then it'll go.
Yeah.
So now we're just gonna do. I'm just gonna do it one more time, and this time I'll move it up 10. So because I just did the move command, if I hit spacebar again, it'll automatically do the same command I was just in. So again, I could pick anywhere on there, and you can see how I'm moving my cursor up. Type 10, and it moves at 10. Good? Everyone move their rectangle? So like I said, if you want to move it to a specific point from a specific point, then you have to pick it that way. So again, I'm going to do move. I'm going to select my object. Then I'm going to hit spacebar. Then it's going to ask you for the base point. So I'm going to actually pick the bottom left corner of this rectangle. So if your O snaps are on, it should pick it automatically. So everyone make sure your O snap is on. And you'll know it's on there when it actually reads out endpoint. It has the little green box at the bottom left.
That means so.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna pick that point, and then I'm gonna drag it over here. And you can see how when I get close to this endpoint, it actually pops up an endpoint over here as well. So if I pick there, now they're stacked. So I have two boxes that are exactly the same. So it's kind of the reason I did that is because the next way is going to show you how to do it without all those extra steps. And it's exactly that. It's just copy. Is anybody not to this point where you have two rectangles stacked on top of each other? Yeah. No, so, okay, so remember, right now, so hit escape and start it again, but don't click anything. So hit move, sorry. So pick your object, hit enter. So you see remember how it's an hourglass? So right now you're on nearest. So remember I was saying you gotta be careful with nearest because it really. So go ahead and click on this guy here, the little blue box. Oops. Sorry, click on it, click the arrow. And then where nearest is, click on it, hold on, check it. Okay, so now come back over here. So now it's on midpoint. So we want the endpoint because we want to move that endpoint to that endpoint. So click it, move it over there.
I got it.
Oh, yep. You don't have to be perfectly on it. You can do it here. As soon as that green box shows up, it's gonna just push it right there. Yeah. So you have the midpoint on too. So if you were closer to the midpoint, it may go to either one, just depending on how like the AI is thinking about it. You can see it keeps changing as you're getting closer, 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 like going from endpoint to midpoint to endpoint.
They did a square shape. And it's doing yours. And I'm trying to undo, right? To get it back to the original.
Okay, hit cancel there, hit cancel. Okay, now type undo.
Okay.
Hit escape, 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 escape. Keep going, keep going. Okay, good. Now do that. Keep going.
Oh, you just have to keep undoing it, right?
No, you can just keep hitting enter.
Oh.
Yeah. Because right there, because when you type in undo, it's actually asking how many steps you want to do. So since you only want to go back one, you can simply. So here, let's just go ahead and redo it. So this will be the same thing here. So we're going to redo it.
Oh, okay.
So if I just go to enter, undo, 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 and I can keep going.
And it'll,
If I keep hitting spacebar, it'll keep going back, back, back,
oh,
back, back, back.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Once you hit the command, then you
Yeah,
just hit
it'll
enter.
reuse the same command that you just used. Yeah.
So then now.
So now you want to move that.
So you go to move. And it's selected.
Yep.
And
So remember to read your command bar. So it's saying select objects. So you're only moving one object, so select those objects. Now you can hit enter. Okay, so now it's telling you start the base point and the start point.
this is the base.
Yep.
So click on it.
Yeah, because you
Enter.
click the
Enter.
thing and you
That's
probably
right.
just start moving it because it could actually has control points on it that you can actually stretch each individual node. Yeah.
And your mouse has to, especially where it is.
So
it's a
you
big
just
deal.
gotta remember to always read your command.
Read the command.
Yeah. It's gonna tell you like the next step, next step, next step. Yeah.
Okay.
You get it? So where we at? So okay, so go ahead and just click anywhere, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Anywhere. So now you wanna do move again, so M enter. Or space bar for that one too. So
I have to keep highlighting.
yes, pick the object. So hit enter now. So now you wanna pick no, you hit selected. You hit space bar twice.
I hit twice.
Yeah. So go ahead and hit space bar, click it, pick the object. You're in the command now.
Drag it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep, there you go. Nope, to the left a little bit.
Wherever your cursor,
Now you go.
wherever it is, that's where it's
No, no, get a click.
back.
There you go. Click. Okay, now you're good. Okay, so you've selected all the objects you want to move. You hit space bar once.
That's what it is.
Now it's saying specify your base point. So move this base point. You want to move this point to that point.
Do it again.
So click on that base point. So literally click on it.
Oh, I see.
You see how the box are in green? Yeah. So again, that's the O snap. And then now go scroll up a little bit. There you go.
The base.
Everyone have two boxes now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty hard to get them. Alright, can you call it up?
We gonna do it again?
She got it. Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna go back. So this is where we were with the two boxes. So, like I said, the first time we did it, we just moved it at a relative point from its existing point. So I moved it 10 to the right. Then I repeated that command. I moved it 10 up. And then I actually wanted to go from specific point to point. So I picked it at the bottom left endpoint of the polyline. And then I picked the top left endpoint of the other polyline. So it moved it there. Good? You'll get better with the move, trust me. It's just you got to remember that you're selecting an object, then you're picking. It's multiple components of the actual command. It's not just one command. You pick the object, you hit enter, so that, or if you want to pick multiple objects, you can move multiple objects at the same time too. So let's just do that. Let's move both the boxes now. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to hit move again. Not move again, just move. Then I'm actually gonna pick both of my boxes. So you can see I have both of the rectangles highlighted now. Then I'm gonna move them to the right. And this time I'm gonna do 20. So it's the same thing as moving one object, except now we're picking two objects instead of one. Yes, no, maybe so? Yeah? Yes? Okay.
It's easier just to draw with paper and pencil, seriously. I mean, I don't know why they did it like this. Rulers, you know, work. Well,
Okay, so we're gonna go to the next one, which is copy. So we basically we drew two individual rectangles. We did one of modifications to them. Now we can simply copy. So that's in the modify ribbon part, and it's actually the word copy, and it gives you a nice little description that shows you when you have one, you highlight them all, and you make two of them basically. So they have like a little dining table or conference table or something in it that they're copying. So in our case, we're gonna copy the top square or the top rectangle only. So shortcut command is CO. Or it's up here, copy, word copy, or type the word copy. So what we're gonna do, it's similar to move the way that you pick it. So I could simply highlight it, pick anywhere in space, doesn't matter, move it over, and it's just gonna move relative, or it's gonna copy relative to its existing position. So if I were to type 20, it's gonna go right to the end because I know that the dimension of that box is 20. But if I hit 30, it'll actually move or copy 30 inches over, or 30 units over. So you'll see that it still has the box because I could actually do multiple copies of the same thing. I could do as many copies as I want. So to end, you simply hit spacebar. And now I have a copy of 1 and 2.
So once you put the copy, you select it, and you put multiple.
You don't even have to hit multiple. It should be defaulted to multiple.
Oh. So then
Yeah.
you just drag
You used to actually have to type multiple, otherwise it would only copy 1, and then they changed it
Oh, okay.
in like, I don't know. But I remember, yeah.
If you want, you just put your cursor or your mouse, whatever you want.
So here, let's do it again. So if I type copy and I select the top box,
Yeah.
right? So now I've selected the objects I want. That's the first part of the command. The second part of the command is select the base point. So it's like I said, similar to move. You have to pick the object and then tell it the base point and the end point. So like I said, I picked anywhere. It doesn't matter where I pick right now because I'm actually going to do it by a finite dimension of 30. I'm not doing it. I'm not trying to snap it to another part of the object or anything like that. So I can simply type 30, and it'll actually move it over to 30. And then now you can see I got a bunch of different. Yeah, I could keep going if I want. I could do 6Z and keep going, but we'll only do 1 for now. Does that make sense?
So we hit the base, which is the left bottom corner.
No, the base point doesn't actually matter because it does if you want to actually pick a specific point. It's just like the move command. If I want to move it and have the base point be at the bottom left corner of that rectangle, then I want to pick the bottom left. But because I know I'm moving it a certain dimension, like if I don't know what that dimension is, like for instance, if I were to take this and now I don't know what the dimension is between these two, and I'm too lazy, I don't want to figure out what it is, but I want to take this box and copy it to this side of this box, right? Then I would do copy, and I would actually highlight that box. I would pick any point on this side, and then I would snap it to here, and then now it's there. But because I was moving it a finite dimension of 30, I didn't have to worry about where I picked. Yeah, because like I said, I could copy it, and I don't see where I picked down here on the bottom?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where I pick because I know the dimension that I'm moving it. If I don't know the dimension, then you're better off picking an endpoint or midpoint or some sort of snap that you have. If you have your grid on, you can pick from the grid points. So
I got you.
Yeah.
So once you do the command, then you hit enter, then you move it, and then you put the exact measurement that you want.
yes.
Just kind of like you do it 2 times.
All right.
It's kind of like you're doing it twice.
I work with him. He used to come here too. So so again, let's just do it one more time. Let's just start from the beginning. So I'm gonna delete these two. Okay. So copy.
Or delete the whole thing. Paste.
Select the object.
Select the object.
Yep. And then if I pick any point, you see where I picked here. Doesn't matter. I picked here and I go 30, and it's gonna take it 30. If I pick here on the left, if I pick over here and I go 30, it's still gonna be in the same spot because I'm doing a finite dimension that's actually moving it that amount, that increment. You know what I mean? So if I want it, like I said, if I want this box here to end up here and actually be touching the other one, then I would have to pick an endpoint. I could pick the midpoint, and then I could pick the midpoint here, and it'll actually copy it to there.
Kind of like the start and where you wanted to finish.
Yeah, that's exactly. If the command line is actually saying where do you want the start point and then the end point. I think it's base point, end point, but yeah. So you're
Put a different
Yeah. So move and copy are like the same sequence when you have to pick the object, pick the base point, pick the end point. But there's a space, there's an enter to enter into the second part of the command for both of them. So let me redo this one so that we have it. So again, just like move, you can copy multiple objects. So if I copy, I'm to type it, copy, and I select both now instead of just the one. So, but this time I'm gonna pick the endpoint, which is common above the two. So it just happened to be the same point. And then if, even though I have ortho on, and this is why I want to do it from there, even if I have the ortho on and I select the midpoint up here, it'll actually move it and it's not going to stay constrained to the ortho because the O snaps are going to overwrite the ortho itself. So we're going to do that one more time. So copy, select both of my objects. The base point is going to be the endpoint that is common between the two objects. And then, so that's my base point, and then the first point, or the second point I should say, the end point, is going to be the midpoint of my other rectangle. So you see how it was on ortho, but it moved it up. That's because OSNAP's going to take priority over.
And then we just move it up. Or do we?
Well, I was just showing you that even if with ortho on, you can still use the OSNAPs to move stuff the way you want.
And it's still selected as an individual, right? Individual box.
They're still individual boxes, yeah. They're not all, I mean, I got 5 objects in here now. Yeah. Cool?
Yeah.
So, moving along, the next one is going to be stretch. So that's the little guy right here. And believe it or not, one of the guys in my office went through an entire auto class, didn't know how to stretch anything. So it really, it's a big part of modifications because sometimes you, instead of redrawing it, I mean, you simply stretch it. I mean, it's such a nice command. So it's this, or it should be the shortcut command of S. So it's saying select the objects. So this is where window and crossing now really comes into play. So if I were to do the crossing, the blue one, notice I don't pick anything. If I click here, it's not picking anything, so I can't stretch it out. But now, if I do a window, you see how it's picking it. So this is where it's going to really come important between windows and crossings. So basically what I want to do is I'm taking these 2 ones on the far right, and I'm going to make them shorter. So I'm going to stretch them instead of, right now they're 20 by 10, I'm going to make them 10 by 10. So when you use the stretch command, there's actually individual nodes on every single one of these. So if I collect this box, you can see how there's a node here, a node here, a node here, and a node here. So stretch is actually going to stretch stuff based off of those nodes, not actually the segment. So you don't have to take the whole segment as long as you get the node. So let's just do it once. So I'm going to select this. I don't need to select the whole thing because if I selected the whole thing, it's actually picking, it'll pick this node and this node and this node. We don't want that. We just want the nodes on the far right. So if I pick that, and then, so now I've selected the objects I want to stretch. So just like copy, just like move, it's a 2-part command. So I'm going to hit spacebar. Then I'm going to select my base point. And again, there's 2 different ways. You could pick on the endpoint if you want. But since I know that I have a finite dimension of 10 units, I'm just going to move it 10 units. So I'm going to pick the base point here. And I'm just going to move my mouse to the left. So you can see how it's actually already, AutoCAD's come a long way with the visualization. It actually starts to do the thing before you actually do it, right? So if I type 10, it'll actually move and stretch my objects. So now they're 10 by 10 boxes instead of 20 by 10. Yeah. So one more time.
In case you want to make 4 bedrooms out too.
Exactly, something like that. Yeah, or you know, the client comes back and he says, "Oh, I want that room to be a foot smaller." Instead of redrawing the whole thing, you stretch it. Okay, here you go, it's done. You know what I mean? Like, You know, with us in manufacturing, we're liable to a 16th of an inch, and we basically go and field measure everything. So, for instance, if those cabinets back there went wall to wall, we would measure from that wall to that wall. And if the architect drew it at 22'6", and it comes as 22'3.5", then I have to stretch everything down. So rather than move every single line at one at a time, I can stretch the entire room, stretch it over to be the right dimension.
A lot faster.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
You may have everything finished already.
Exactly. So you can see how when somebody came into my office and didn't understand the stretch command, it was like it's a big part of what we do. So I'm sure, yeah. Any type of manufacturing, you're always stretching everything because you're taking an object that you already have because you don't want to draw from scratch. You stretch it to the size that you need it to be. So we're gonna do it one more time. So shortcut S, and then we're gonna window over.
Escape. And then
You get escape over everything. If you're the command, escape over everything. So then you're gonna window over the nodes on the far right, and then this iteration. Oops. In this iteration, I'm actually gonna do the endpoint and the midpoint, just because it is half. You know, the length is twice as big as the height. So if I pick the endpoint, and then I hover over, and you see where the little triangle comes in, that's my midpoint. That's the O snap for the midpoint. So I can simply click that. Now it's the same. So now it's still 10 because it was just 2 by 1. So
You're recording right now?
yeah, I didn't record the last one actually. I realized that. Well, because we started over there, and I don't even have a microphone, so you can't. You guys are hearing my voice again. I don't know. You can turn on mute if you want. Yes.
So if it's only moving half the rectangle.
Yep. What if you want to move the whole thing?
Well, yeah, but on mine it's only moving half the rectangle.
Let's see here. So I'll show you what you did. So when you window this, you're windowing to here, right?
it's already selected.
No, but you window it to
It's
here.
blue selected.
Now if you do that,
So you gave it stretch.
so when you did it, this, that's what I was saying. So
Just not.
remember, so
Okay, you
here,
do that.
escape, click on the rectangle.
I just did it individually.
Just click.
Yeah.
So you see that there's the boxes, just click those nodes. So basically, this one has those same 4 nodes, right? So if I
now,
don't pick this node,
got
this
to
node, and
select-
then this
I'll
node,
just
the
select
top
it.
one, and then I'll pick that one, it's not gonna affect that.
What command?
Yeah. So go ahead and watch. No, here. Type in stretch,
Oh, this one?
and then pick from here to the middle of that box. Go up,
So
right.
then-
Go up a little more.
so that-
Right there.
So
Now
now,
hit enter. And then now move.
and now you. Remember?
That's what it was. See, so you're not selecting that. That's what I'm saying. You can do that too. You can get some pretty cool shapes out of it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. There's different ways. You don't necessarily have to just do the one.
Okay. Yeah, so you said 10. Undo. That's it. Yeah. That's good. And now you put the base one.
Go ahead. Let's do the watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you picked the whole thing.
Yeah.
Hit escape. Go ahead and hit escape. So type in stretch. Enter. So you want to pick? No. So when we select this object here, but when I select this object here, you see those 4 boxes. Those are nodes. They're knots, nodes, whatever I call them nodes. So this one has those same 4 nodes. They're the same, right? That one has. They all have the same nodes. So if I stretch, and if I select all of them, it's gonna move all those nodes, right? So now if I stretch and I only select half of it, like that, I don't have to select half of it. I just need to make sure that I get those 4 nodes, and then. Ooh, this one. There we go. That way. There you go.
And the reason you
So it's better to highlight it with the green, because you can actually specify what you want.
Exactly. That's what I was showing the difference between the window and the crossing, because so the window, if I wanted to, the window you're not really gonna be able to stretch. I mean, unless I did this, you see, but you see how it didn't even affect that one
Uh-huh.
because I didn't do the window. So if I undo it, and if I stretch it and I select like that, you see how it was basically the same area that I selected, but it's doing a completely different thing. That's why I wanted to show the window versus the crossing.
Thank you.
Okay, so the other thing you could do is you can select an entire part of one object and then only part of the other object. So now I'm gonna make this rectangle here a 10 by 10 rectangle as well, but I want to move it right to left, not left to right, because let's just say these are multiple buildings, and those 3 buildings are the ones that are getting smaller, but the distance between the 2 buildings has to stay the same. So what we'll do is we'll do stretch again, and it's going to be really similar, but I'm actually going to select the entire 2 small squares, but only the right side of the rectangle. So if I do that, and then so I've selected my objects.
Once you select it, do you have to put enter again?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. It's like a 2-part command.
Okay. Select it, enter. Okay.
Select, and again, if you read your command bar, it's gonna say select objects, and I could keep picking objects. It'll stretch them really, really weird, but it'll stretch them.
Yeah.
So then I'm gonna select the base point, or you know what? We'll just use the endpoint to endpoint because that's already the dimension I want to move. So we want to move it 10 units. So if I select this endpoint and I move it to this endpoint, then I got 3 boxes that are 10 by 10 now.
Do we put 10?
You can type 10, yeah, because you know it's a finite dimension. So
Yeah.
that's why I was doing 20 by 10, because it's half and half. It was just a lot easier that way. Trying to pick something weird. Could have done like 12 by 24, I guess. Been
Yeah.
cool, but. Good, good. So that's stretch in like a really, really small part, because you'll see when it comes to like other parts, if you have W blocks won't stretch, but the parts that are attached to will. But we'll get to that. But I just wanted to show you, like I said, I'm trying to take this ribbon. We're going to go through the draw and the modify, because those are the most common tools that you're always using. And then we'll kind of feed in little parts and pieces as we go. So the next one on this is rotate. So it's exactly that. You're going to take something and you're going to rotate it at a certain degree. Just because I want to try to make things easy right now, we're going to do it to 45 degrees just because it's half a 90. So just make it easy. So let's say your client comes back to you now, and the 2 larger buildings, he doesn't like them being perpendicular to the other ones. He wants them on an angle, right? Okay, so rather than go and redraw all those lines at an angle, we can simply rotate the entire box. So it's this little guy right here with the little funky arrow that's in a circle, or RO will be the shortcut command, or you can simply type rotate. So RO and select. So it's similar to the other 3 where you're selecting the object that you're modifying, and then you're doing something to it. So just like the other ones, you have to enter in between. So I've selected the 2 objects I want to rotate. So I'm gonna hit spacebar. Now it's asking me select the base point for the rotation. So for this one, we're gonna pick the bottom left corner basically. So the end point down here on the bottom rectangle on the far left. So if I pick that guy, you're gonna see stuff start to happen. So you can see that it's actually rotating based upon that point, right? So right now my ortho's on, so it's only gonna snap to 90 and 0, right? But I could also, so if you see here where it has copy reference, and we'll get into those, it's at 0, so it's defaulting the rotation to 0. So if I simply enter, it's not gonna do anything. So I'm gonna type in 45 because it's a degree now. It's not an actual linear dimension. It's an angle dimension. So if I type 45, now I got two rectangles that are crooked, basically. One more time. We'll go back. So rotate. If I could spell. Select both of my objects. Pick my base point. Type in 45. Okay, so like I said, within rotate, there's two other ways to rotate rather than typing in the actual angle that you want. Well, there's one other way, but the other thing does something else. So I'm going to show you the next step. So I'm going to take both of these boxes again. So we're going to rotate. Oops, if I could spell. And then I'm going to select my two boxes. Then enter. My base point is now going to be the highest point on there, the tip of the diamond. And then now I'm going to copy this. So let's just say your client comes back and says, hey, I want two of those buildings right on top of it, but I want it rotated 180 degrees. Okay, fine. So I could either click the word copy, which will be in your command bar, or again, the little blue letter on the word copy means that's the shortcut for it to copy. So if I click that, now you see when I rotate, the other one's staying there versus before it was moving with my mouse, right?
You just click on rotate, right?
Mm-hmm. So if you have ortho on, you can simply just watch it move, and then when it gets to the point that you want, you can click. Now I have the same exact object on top of each other. So you don't necessarily have to copy it up. You can rotate copy. You could copy it up if you want. You can move it and then redraw it. You can do all kinds of different things. So there's multiple ways to get to the same solution.
When we click copy, do we select,
You still have to select your objects first.
yeah,
Yep.
which corner, the right one or the left one?
I did the top corner.
The top one,
Yeah, the highest point of the diamond.
okay.
And then you'll see in your command bar it'll say copy or reference.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So you rotate, select your objects, pick your base point, click on the word copy or type in C. One more time. So rotate, select my objects, select my base point. So you see how it's moving around right now? Because that's going to rotate the actual object. Now when I hit copy, now it's no longer moving it around. It's actually showing me a duplicate of that object. Okay? So let's just say, I guess it's do 45? Yeah, we'll do 45. So let's just say I accidentally did it like that. Oh, crap. Okay. So there's two different ways you can do it. I could either redo it, undo and redo it, or another way to do it is re-rotate it at the same degrees that you want, or you could re-rotate based off of a reference point. So if I do rotate, I select my two objects, I pick my base point, and I click my reference point. So basically, because my ortho's on, I want to be able to take the diamond and rotate it all the way back so that it matches the other diamond, right? So I'm going to pick from this point, and I'm going to pick clear across the other side to the second base point, and then now I'm able to rotate it back into the place that it is. So basically, like you would come up to this if you had a line. So let's just do this. Everyone turn off your ortho. So everyone F8. Turn off your ortho. And I want everyone to draw a line. Doesn't matter where you pick it, just pick it other away from all your other objects. Okay? And I want you to draw it random length. I don't care what length it is. I don't care what angle it is. Draw it at a random length or angle. It doesn't matter. So for mine, it's 31 at 23 degrees. Okay? Click. There's my line, right? So what you could do to correct this so that you don't have to go redraw the line, and it's a line right now, it's really easy just to redraw it, right? But if it's an actual like object and you realize later on down the road that it's actually off kilted by like a degree or two, what we could do is we could rotate the object and put it back to being straight, basically. So I'm gonna select that. I'm gonna pick the base point. So it really doesn't matter which base point. For me, I'm just gonna pick the left. Then if I hit reference or I type R, so reference there, okay? So now I want to pick the line that I want to reference. So the line I want to reference is, in this case, the line, right? So I'm going to hit the base point again, then I'm going to come out and I'm going to hit the end point. Or I could pick the midpoint, but for this instance, let's just do the end point, okay? So now you can see it's actually rotating perfectly with my mouse, right? So now if I quickly turn my ortho back on, so I hit F8. And then you see how it snaps back down. So now if I click, now my line's straight again.
Okay. Give me a, I've got the line. Now, how do I get it to, how do I manipulate it?
So did you draw a straight line?
I've got a straight
That's
line.
because your ortho was on. So delete that line. Go ahead and highlight it and hit delete. Okay. Now hit F8.
All right.
Now draw a line. Pick a point. Now just pick another random point so it's at an angle. Okay.
Point two. Okay, I got it.
So now you have a line like mine.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we rotate. RO or rotate or use the button. Select your line. Pick your base point. In my case, the bottom left. You could do the top right. It doesn't matter.
And if you select the other point, it will go opposite.
Yeah, but you can still rotate it straight.
Oh, the whole way.
Yeah, I just get used to working left to right because that's the way we read. That's just the way I get used to drawing. So, okay, so now once I have my base point, I could hit reference or I could type the letter R and spacebar. And then I'm going to create the reference line. So I'm going to click the start and the end of that line. And then I'm going to hit F8 so that it is on ortho again. So now hit F8 again so that it's on ortho. Yeah. So let me just show you guys so that you can see, even if I do a reference point, let's say, like, I don't necessarily have to reference it based off of this line. I could reference it here. And you see how it's moving at the same, like, as I move my mouse, it's still moving with my mouse because it's just referencing my mouse. So if you wanted to rotate something based off of another reference point, you could do that as well. In this case, I'm just showing you how to correct a line that was drawn crooked. Like if you, for instance, you forgot to have, you didn't have ortho on, you just want to change it real quick. It's real quick to do.
How do you know when you take the ortho off or on?
So we know that when we drew it crooked, the ortho was off, right?
Yeah.
But now when I want it to snap, I can simply type the degree that I think it is, but that would require me to know what the degree is. Since I don't know what the degree is, when I turn on the ortho, it's gonna snap back to 90. Negative 90, negative 180, whatever, you know, the 4 points, basically.
So you take the ortho so you can do it a degree, like a 35 degree.
So I don't have to know the degree.
Okay.
That's the whole point of the
So you can
ortho.
move it back.
Yeah, exactly. If I knew the degree, then I could simply type the degree and it'll move it back. So if I rotated the object and I did it negative 23, because that's what it said it was before,
That you need to
I knew the degree. But there's instances where you don't know what the degree is. You know what I mean? So I'm just showing you the different parts of the rotate command, basically. Make sense to everybody? Rotating fiends, right? There you go. Okay, the last one, and then we're gonna take a break, is mirror. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It reflects across the plane. So think of a mirror in the face. You look at the same object in the mirror that you are that's outside the mirror. So that's gonna be here. It's two triangles with a little line in between it. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
The shortcut command is MI. So now I'm gonna come down to these little objects here, and I want to take. My client comes back, says I want another building like this on the other side, right? So I'm gonna select the smaller box on the left. Okay. Then, so I've selected my objects. So I'm gonna hit spacebar. Okay, or enter. Then now it's asking me for my mirror plane. Essentially, is what it is. It's a plane. It's an invisible plane that I'm drawing. So I'm drawing this line that's goes on into infinity. That's gonna mirror all the objects I selected across that plane. So for our case, since I want to flip it from this side of the building to that side of the building, I could simply pick the midpoint of the two on the right at the top, come down, select the midpoint on the bottom. So it says, so now it's going to ask you, do you want to erase the source object? In this case, no, because we're just adding a building, right? But let's say, for instance, you didn't need that one anymore. Saves you a step from having to erase it. You can hit yes. So it defaults to no. Unlike Rhino, Rhino defaults to yes, so it really gets really confusing. But it defaults to no, so you could click yes or no at the bottom. You could simply hit Y or N, but just remember that it defaults to no. So if I hit spacebar, bam, now I have my other box on the other side. One more time? Okay, so like I said, mirror, the two little triangles with the line through it, almost like I guess it looks like a sail. Or the shortcut is MI. So first select the objects, then spacebar, and then I'm picking the midpoint because I want it to still touch the other side. So if I were to pick the end point, what do you guys think would happen? Anybody? It would be farther away from the building, right? Okay, good. And if I pick this point here, what do you think would happen?
It's gonna be inside.
Yeah, so remember that it's picking, it's mirroring, you're drawing the plane that it's mirroring across. So we're going to pick a midpoint, defaults to no. Now I have my 4 boxes. Everyone understand the mirror? And in the mirror.